So today I want to talk about the adrenal glands and a very common misconception. Right now, a lot of people are still following the old adrenal fatigue model where they believe that their adrenals really aren't working and they're taking adrenal cortex and they're taking corticosteroids. And while this can sometimes be the case, what I've seen over the past 8 years running literally thousands of these Dutch tests is more often than not, the adrenals are functioning fine. They're just not functioning properly because of other issues in the body. It's not the adrenals themselves, it's these other imbalances and deficiencies and stressors on the body that is causing the body to change the way the cortisol response is happening. And so it's very, very important before you start taking adrenal cortex or corticosteroids, especially if you're feeling fatigued and you have low levels on saliva or blood, you really want to run this Dutch test, because if you start taking it and your metabolized cortisol is actually high, what's going to happen is you're going to turn off your adrenal glands, which is not something we want to do unless we actually have to. So when we're going to look at some of these labs, I'm going to share my screen, we're going to go over them. I'll go over, where we would actually want to add in the adrenal cortex, but honestly, I like to do a lot of things first before we turn off the adrenal glands with the cortex. It's the same with the thyroid glandular. If you take a thyroid glandular, you are going to turn off your thyroid hormone. And there's a lot of times where that's really good, and there's a lot of times where that is not good. So we want to make sure we're seeing a whole picture. And, if you're working on your adrenals, if you're suffering from fatigue, I wouldn't even be starting with this Dutch test. I would do my foundation labs, oats, genetics, blood work on the brain, so neurotransmitter balance, work on mitochondria, so energy centers, detox pathways, toxins. We would want to see nutrient deficiencies, thyroid. There's all these things that need to be in place first, working on mindset, lowering emotional stress, before we jump to adrenals, before we jump to the hormones. So that's going to be a good 2-3 months of work before you run this Dutch test. But I do want to, share some of these labs with you so that you can see it's not always so cut and dry, and that adrenal fatigue model really doesn't work anymore. Okay, so let me share my screen. Which one do I want? This one. Okay, so the most common pattern that I see is actually this one. It's good adrenal function. So once we've done that foundation lab work and we run the Dutch, we see pretty decent adrenal function. Cortisol curve is pretty good. To simplify things, and it's how I explain it in my book. I actually go over the different patterns in my book, Heal Yourself. But this kind of looks like a clock here. And if we imagine 10 and 2, anywhere between 10 and 2 is really, that's optimal ranges. This is a little outside of optimal range. But, this person can be complaining about fatigue and have perfectly great functioning adrenals. We are seeing a pretty decent curve here. We're seeing a little drop in the afternoon cortisol. We'd like to see that a little bit high. They're probably coming home from work. They're probably a little bit more tired. They might be eating and then resting. And that's where we're seeing the cortisol go down at night. But overall, this is really great function. And this is what I see most when I run the Dutch after doing the foundation. Now, if I ran the Dutch before doing the foundation, we probably wouldn't see this. And it's why we want to do the foundation first, so that we're not having to add so many supplements on board, so that we're not trying to force the body to fix a system. We're just supporting the body and allowing it to start to heal and repair. So the second common one that I see is this one. And this is where people end up going to their doctor, running a saliva or blood cortisol test. They're seeing very low levels of free cortisol, and they're put on corticosteroids or they're put on adrenal cortex, and in essence, turning off their adrenal glands. And what we see here with their metabolized cortisol is that they are actually producing a good amount of adrenal cortisol. Like the adrenals are working pretty decently, but the body is breaking it down. And that happens for two reasons. One, the body actually breaks down cortisol into cortisone. And cortisone is our body's natural anti-inflammatory. So when the body is under stress, when there's a lot of inflammation, when there's a lot of toxin burden, issues with the gut, issues with detox pathways, we see this metabolized cortisol start to go up. And so right now it's still in optimal range, but oftentimes we'll see it above optimal range. And that is the body saying, hey, you need to rest while I work on this inflammation. The other thing that we could see is that the cortisone is actually not elevated, which is actually tested also on the Dutch on one of the later pages. But we see that the cortisol is low, metabolized cortisol is high, and it just means the body is saying, hey, you need to rest. We are not going to keep going along with this fight or flight that you're doing. We need to rest. We need to try to repair. And it's up to us to really honor the body. When we're seeing this pattern, we could use something like licorice to slow the breakdown a little bit and provide some more free cortisol for the body to use during the day for daily tasks. But really, we want to address why the heck is this happening? Like, what is going on? Let's address the inflammation. Let's work on the gut. Let's work more on the detox pathways. Let's, address heavy metals. Let's address the emotional stress. Let's address that job that is sucking the life from you. Let's address the relationship issues that are draining you. And that is what's really key. And this is why I love running these labs, because right now we're seeing that this person has the ability to produce good amount of cortisol. We're seeing a good amount of cortisol there. It's just being broken down. We're seeing high levels of DHEA. We're seeing estrogen and progesterone elevated above optimal. So this person can make it, but the body is saying, I don't want it. And we need to honor that. Another pattern that I see is this one. Now, this is the true adrenal fatigue, but it's a lot more rare than people realize. And when we see this, I don't love jumping right to adrenal cortex. I don't love jumping to corticosteroids. I would prefer to support upstream metabolites. So add in some pregnenolone. We're seeing DHEA production is low. It's below optimal. Progesterone here is pretty good. Estrogen is low. Right now on this particular test, I had just pulled this picture to show you this, but we would actually see the breakdown of the hormones on the next page. And if we're seeing that estradiol is being safely metabolized, if the estrogen is safely metabolized, then hey, we're good to add in some upstream metabolites of the cortisol. And from there, we can add in some adrenal adaptogens and say, hey, body, let's support your adrenals so that you can start to make some more cortisol while we go and address the why. Because there is always a why. Why is the body so stressed? Why is the body so depleted? Let's give the body more nutrients. Let's give the body more tools to heal. Let's reduce the stress on the body. Let's work on the pathogens. Let's work on the toxins. Let's work on the metals. Let's work on the emotional stress so that the body's adrenals can start to kick in on its own. That is always our goal. Let's try to bring back regular function before taking something like adrenal cortex, which is going to turn off the adrenal glands, just like taking a thyroid glandular. So we don't jump right to taking a thyroid glandular because we want to see if we can get the thyroid to work properly. Now, there's some cases where that's not the case, and you can check out my my thyroid video for how we address the thyroid with NDT and how to heal the thyroid. But here I want to just show you some more of these patterns now. Here we're seeing, high free cortisol and high metabolized cortisol. And what's crazy is this person could be really tired. This person could have a lot of fatigue also. So fatigue does not equal low cortisol. This person can be in a chronic rat race, stress, fight or flight, and they're exhausted. They're tired. This could be from anxiety. This could be from emotional stress. This could be from toxins. This could be from pathogens. The body is just really working hard. And in this particular one, we always want to look at the full picture. So we're looking at the cortisol pattern, and we can actually see here the morning cortisol is very elevated. Now, that is going to be indicative of a very stressful morning routine. So getting the kids out the door, getting off to work, getting everything prepared. This is a very, very common pattern of people who go in the morning. They set their alarm clocks. It wakes them up. They're really rushing. This is what we see. Caffeine drinkers, again, we're going to see that spike. Now, I was hoping, did I get a dysfunctional curve? Okay, perfect. This is another pattern we see. So we're seeing good free cortisol. We're seeing low and metabolized cortisol, but we're seeing high waking cortisol. Now, when we're looking at the Dutch, um, this is actually waking actually kind of means the middle of the night and morning means waking. So it's showing you because it's your urine, it's not telling you what's happening right then. It's saying this is what's happening before. So when we see this elevation here, it indicates that there is high cortisol happening at nighttime. And that is almost always going to be detox issues or pathogens. So this is, again, it's not an adrenal issue. Something else is going on. And this person's going to be very tired because they're producing their cortisol at night. And then in the morning, it's low. In the afternoon, it's low. So they're not having that free cortisol at the time that they need it. And that's where we don't try to change the adrenals. We need to address the pathogens and the detox pathways. So I hope you enjoyed checking out some of these Dutch tests. They are really cool. These labs, you have to admit, they're pretty fun to geek out on. I am always excited when clients get labs in and I'm doing foundation protocols and I can see a picture of what's going on in their body. If you want to learn more about the Dutch test, you can always check out the appendix of my book. I do go over the hormones and the adrenal common patterns that we see. And if you are looking for a practitioner, go to my website. It's www.sgintegrativehealing.com. And if you really love these labs and you're thinking that you might want to make a career out of this, or you want to learn how to analyze them more in depth, check out the Integrative Healing Academy. I teach you how to become your own practitioner, go on to become a practitioner, and start your business if that is what you're interested in. So it's www.integrativhealingacademy.com.